So, what's up, guys? Welcome again to the Elevate podcast. And I'm very excited about this one because we actually started it on Sunday and we created like a story and then we were like just having a discussion. And it didn't come out the way I wanted to come out. And so I was like, let's do something that is going to be very like detail oriented. So, very excited. Had a lot of prep on this one and thought about it. So, like, just what do you think about going into this the third podcast?
I'm getting comfortable now.
Yeah.
Getting used to it, I think.
What was your thoughts on what was your thought process like on the first one?
The first one, I was very conscious of myself.
Yeah.
I was very aware. Like, once the camera turned on, everything just changed. Everything I said, everything I did, I was aware of it. And I was nervous. And I think I looked at one of the clips that we posted on YouTube. And I saw the comments on there. And it was like, wow. The amount of people that reacted to it and the things that they were saying, it was just crazy. The fact that they were able to say so many things in a 10-second video was just a lot.
Yeah. And then the clips, the reactions from people was like amazing because it was very spontaneous. The first podcast was very spontaneous because we just spoke about so many topics. And, but the second one, what did you think about the second one with Ben?
Yeah, I liked the second one. I think it was chilled. It was really cool. Everything felt comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I could listen to it as if I was listening to a regular conversation.
With people, yeah.
Yes.
It wasn't more, it was more in depth in regard to what Ben does. And like I said again, Ben is basically the one who's running this whole thing on the background. So what I'm excited about today is because we're going to talk about African culture in Western society. So I had this thought like in college when I was studying literature and when I was studying about the context of, let's say, kingdoms and kings and how one country would overtake the other country. What they would literally do is most of the time is the culture, right? Instead of attacking the king or the people, you attack the culture because the king is there to defend the culture, right? And then within that culture, that's where you defend the people. Because in the confine of the culture, that's where there's the people. And if you were to overtake the culture and to change it to your own culture, you'll be able to overtake and you bring confusion because people will not know what to defend and what to stand for.
Yeah, you basically control the minds of the people because the people make the culture. But when the culture has full control of them, let's say a minority group makes the culture and then they incentivize everybody else to follow it, and it's either you follow this or you're wrong, then we all follow the culture, whether it is bad, whether it is good, and that ultimately leads to the policies that are being made in the government. Yeah,
because cultures never die.
Yeah.
Like the ethos never dies because the spirit of the culture is always going to be there regardless. You either just replace it with another culture. If you go to any society and you feel like, oh, maybe this is a cultureless society, there's no society in the world that has no culture.
Yeah, there is a culture. It's like the norms or the lifestyle or the way of life of the people, how you live your life. For example, you don't do anything with your life. That's a culture.
Yep.
That's literally something that that can be called as a culture. So if you have a culture of productivity or anything else, I think that's also part of that as well.
Yeah, and we see this in our culture and in African cultures and in American culture, which is going to be the conversation today, because we grew up in kind of like we were raised in Africa, but we grew up in America, right? Would you say you grew up in Africa or were you raised in grew up in Africa and raised in America, or raised in America and grew up in Africa?
What's the difference?
I feel like growing up is like it's like a state of getting to the maturity of things, and raised is like depending on
the culture,
depending on someone else to take care of you. So, for instance, I would say raised would be like from age of 0 to
Like 8 for
like
me.
teens, when you reach like 13s or something like that, that would be like raising. You are being raised because you are dependent on someone, and then growing up is like grew up. I think it's more of where you are growing into the level of maturity and becoming independent. That's the way I take it. Like, I don't know if that's the right definition.
I don't
That's the way
think so,
take it.
because I think of it in sort of like the sense of when you're a child, and then like there's something about giving birth and raising. There's a difference between that.
Yeah, that's raising. Yeah,
Yeah.
are dependent on the child is dependent on the mother and the father to
But
be
you
raised.
could still be raised in a different country because there's a sense of growth.
Yeah, true.
Like for me, I came here when I was 8, so I pretty much grew up here and I was raised here, I would say.
Yeah, like the growth part, but like, interesting enough, when you think about growth and growing into becoming adult, right, and being raised, like, in terms of, that's the way I think about it. But I don't know what your thoughts on it.
Yeah,
Maybe I'm conflating the two ideas.
I think it's the same thing.
It's the same
I
thing.
think it's the same thing. I grew up in America. I was raised in America. Same thing.
Yeah, kind of like the same
Yeah.
thing. Oh, well, I usually tell people that I was raised in Africa. Then I grew up in America.
No, I think growing up, like you said, is sort of like you going to a sense of maturity, and you did that mostly in America. You kind of found that.
That's where I grew up.
And you were raised in America. As far as the physical you, everything. I think a lot of our memories does come from. Where do most of your memories come from?
My memory?
Yeah.
I'll say both.
Both? Yes. Equally?
Equally, yes. Because
really?
I've equally lived in both countries. 12 years in Africa and about 12 years in here too. So,
what do you think most of your character is shaped by? My
character?
Yeah.
100% from my parents, and 100% from the values.
Values.
Yes, the values, because what African parents normally do is they instill value in you, right? And those values, you are able to assimilate to them, and then you grow within those value, within those perimeter of value. So you have, I would say, a presupposition that has been set within you based on the value that was instilled by your parents. And then when you are growing up, you look to that parameters to dictate to what decision you make and how you grow and how you're going to go about things.
Yes, because values are sort of like the principles that direct our lives and lead us. But a lot of times when we don't understand the why behind those values, we tend to deviate. That's where you see a lot of people go into the rebellion stage.
Yeah.
Where it's like, why do I have to do this? Why am I doing this? For example, the values of modesty, the values of chastity before marriage, the values of respecting your elders, all these great values. A lot of our teens, we question ourselves and we say, why do I have to do this? Why do I have to remain chaste? Why do I have to walk with discretion? Why do I have to do all these things? What's the importance about that? And when I think about values, I think a lot of our African culture, it is very community oriented.
Yeah.
And for every individual, there is a sense of duty that you bring to the table. So it's not just about the individual American perspective where the individual is sort of like at the top and everything I do is to satisfy myself. But it's rather, what can the individual do for the better collective? And that's something that I admire about our African culture.
Yeah, it built on each other, because most of the countries that we from are based on struggles, and struggles tend to lead people to come together and have a better understanding of things. So that way they can create this harmonizing harmony that can nurture children for the next generation. And I saw a lot of that, especially in Zambia, where, you know, the neighbor, right? This is African concept where your neighbor is basically your mom, kind of. And then the father that you see is the someone who's older, same age as your parent, is basically your father in some sense.
Yeah.
Especially with the respect. Like, what do you think about, like, the respect, the disparity between the respect in American culture to your elder and the African culture to your elder?
Well, I think there's two aspects of that. One is the extreme and one is the complete ignorance for elders and just the lack of respect.
Yeah.
And I think America, depending on the person, they can balance those two equally. And I like the fact that we can come to our elders per American culture. You can come to your elders and you can approach them. They're approachable.
Yeah.
But I also like the African culture where it's like you can't necessarily call someone who's older than you by their name, their first name.
Like,
It's
yeah.
either ma'am, mom, or sister, brother. It's never going to be their name. And there is a level of respect based on the wisdom that they have.
And the way you speak to them too is different.
The way you speak to them is different. And I think that understanding is important because a lot of times we can look to our elders and think, okay, I'm better than them, and allow our arrogance to get in the way. But at the same time, when you look at someone, regardless of how strong you think you are, regardless of how wise you think you are as an individual, I think there's also always something that you can learn. And that notion of hierarchy that we have sort of like underlines that authority. And I did this, there was a question that my leadership professor asked, and he basically asked, would you work in a company that didn't have structure, where there was no hierarchy? And the amazing thing is a lot of my classmates, they said no.
Really?
Yeah, they said no. And you would think, okay, everybody wants freedom. I'm not going to be bound by an authority, so that should be okay. But we need authority figures.
Yeah.
We need that.
Because the structure is set up to where you have a mentor you can look up to, and then the mentor that you look up to, you can mirror their steps. It makes your life easier because you can mirror someone else's step, so that way you can see areas of their mistakes. You can also see areas where you can improve. And the hierarchy structures, especially with the American culture, like is built upon like a system that is very, very grounded. And there's this concept of like male dominant patriarchy in terms of like the hierarchy that has been built in America. And I don't know how you can correlate that with like the African where we grew up, because it feel like the perceptions is based on different groups, right? The idea of, or their view on the hierarchy of the society is based on two different individual or different idea, and everybody just assimilate or perceive those ideas differently. Like they can say, okay, the American structure is so bad, or the American structure is so good. Like they're so very patriotic and non-patriotic, and you just have like to find a balance between those two. Is like, well, let's look at both of them, and especially where we come from, and then try to understand the two.
Yeah, I think the concept of the male patriarchy is different in America than it is in Africa.
Yeah.
Because like you said, in America, when you think of the patriarchy, it's often said with a negative connotation.
Yeah.
It's something bad.
Most of the time.
We don't want the patriarchy. And like when people give you examples of what exactly is the patriarchy, to me, I just see them as differences between man and woman.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I'm not able to do those things that a man is doing, but that doesn't make me any less than a man. And so understanding sort of like our own parameters as well as our own unique strengths, not to juxtapose them to men, and that we are uniquely important. We're just as important. We're just as strong as women, just as men are. I think that's important, and we don't need to be like men. We don't need to be men. I don't need to be a man. I can be a woman and still be strong.
Yeah, and I feel like throughout the course of history, right, men and women have always been working together.
Yeah, they
rather
have.
than in construct with one another.
Yeah, I think we complement each other well.
Yeah.
And I think that complementary is something that in our culture, American culture precisely, is something that a lot of people try to take away from that because they want equality. But I just don't think that we can be equal because we're different. Not in the sense that I shouldn't have equal opportunities.
The basic humanity, human are created equal, but equals of opportunity is always better than equals of outcomes, because anyone with any sense can argue that equal of opportunity is way better, because equal of outcomes depending upon what the person put in, and there's so much factor to play with when it comes to equals of outcomes. Then
and I think it's sort of like comparing apples and oranges. Like we have to understand the differences, and that doesn't necessarily make one bad over the other. It just means that you're different.
And the differences is like we have to embrace it. So in the sense of like growing up, what do you think are values that we have been able to take from our parents?
Well, a lot of our values have been strictly rooted in the Bible. And our parents growing up, they would constantly instill those values through songs, hymns. I specifically remember Mom, she used to sing Psalms, forgot the verse, 120, the Lord is my shepherd. Yes, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. And she would constantly sing that song over and over and over again. And it just built something in me. And it sort of like instilled those values in me. So definitely like the values that are built based on biblical scriptures, teaching us to live righteously. And one of the things that correlates to is modesty. I think that for women mostly in our society is they teach us to be modest, to be chaste, to have discretion in a way, and that's a valuable attribute I think is missing in our society, especially these days where it's like I don't know, we just want to be a different way in a way where it's like I think there is beauty in modesty, there is beauty in having discretion.
And the thing about, you said something about rebellious stage where people don't want to do the things that they grew up doing. And it comes with not understanding the value of it, right? If you don't understand the value of the things that were instilled in you since you were a child, you won't be able to, let's say, grow into it or even acknowledge it, right? And a lot of people deviate from it. It's like, especially when it comes to like religion and Christianity, where you grow up being a Christian, and then next thing you know, you're in college. You don't know anything about it. You already reject it and rebel from it. And we who grew up being taught those religious principles and being taught all these things, right? If we don't practice those things in our life and see the value of it, we won't be able to grow it personally or on an individual level.
So understanding is definitely a big thing. And I think there's a saying that virtue is concerned with not only actions but also feelings, and feelings meaning intent. So they'll teach us these words in the sense of do this, do that, this is the right way, follow this path, and you will be safe. But if you don't understand the value of that, like you said, and if you're not doing it with the right intent, then it really changes the virtue. You can really sort of question the morality of that thing. For example, I think this is a good example where you look at a rich man and then you have a poor man. And let's say this rich man has the attributes of just being charitable. And so they decide every single day, I'm going to give this man a loaf of bread just to get them day by day. But when you really think about that, what that rich man is doing, let's say that rich man owns a company and he has workers that can work and pretty much take care of themselves, and yet he's feeding this poor man a loaf of bread, keeping them complacent, keeping them being low, and sort of like doing this so that he can receive like praise from other people, then you can really question the morality of that man. And I wouldn't say that he is superiorly virtuous, just because when you look at the intent, there's nothing beneficial to the poor man. And you're sort of incentivizing poverty. And when you build sort of like, you build trust based on like bad ideology or just distrust in a way, like you build trust based on a way that is not of integrity. And so you do all these things to sort of like feed your ego and narcissistic behavior instead of actually doing it for the right
reason.
For the
and
right
also
reasons.
like when I'm gonna hold your thought process. When you say something about the rich man giving the loaf of bread to the poor man, right? They're giving them something that without the process of getting that loaf of bread,
Yeah.
right? And that's where the narcissistic come from, because you're allowing someone to be neglected of the educations that allow them to be able to get to what you're offering them. So you give them something without the satisfactions of the process of it,
Yeah.
right? And that's gonna be detrimental. And I see this in so many, especially in our culture, where we learn how to receive, but we don't know how to get what we need,
Yeah.
right?
We
And
ultimately don't know how to get it.
yeah,
And I specifically like this. I think you know the story of the man who was the beggar. And they're the people of God, the disciples, they came by him and they were like, I have nothing to give you, but this, Jesus, I'll give you. And so get up and walk. And so you see that man was sitting at the door begging. He was sitting at the gate begging every single morning for money. And that just only really kept him complacent. He never had a dream of actually entering the temple because he didn't see that. But once you give him the necessary tools that will allow him to do that, sometimes people will look at you and say, well, that's an injustice because you should have just handed him the money. But how about you teach me the skills that will allow me to get there?
yeah,
And a lot of times we have this poverty mindset. We just want to receive.
yeah.
Just give me free money and the stimulus checks, for example, right? Like
You
it
attach
seemed
the
good.
stimulus
Yeah,
check.
it seemed good in COVID. Everybody wanted free money until you realize that you don't want to work anymore. It incentivizes you to be lazy. Nobody wants to go back to work.
Yeah.
Businesses shut down because no one wants to go back to work. Why? Because the government is handing out free money.
Yeah, and incentivize that. There are people who actually need that money, and there are people who like it doesn't incentivize them to not do anything at all. And so one of the things that I've learned from my dad, which is, I would say, is one of the greatest person that I look up to when it comes to hard working.
Yeah.
Right. My dad has shown me the way of hard working. He's one of the hardest. You know this, right?
Yeah, he is. He's very hardworking.
He's the hardest working man alive, I would say. Like he wake up, like he don't sleep sometimes. He just
I think
work.
he wakes up at like 4 in the morning. I would find him sweeping and I would get scared. I'm like, who is that? Who is there? And he's just sweeping and sweeping. Yeah. I'm like, why are you up? He's like, well, I have to go to work. What time do you have to go to work? I have to be there at 7:30. It's 4 a.m.
And then work probably start about like 8:30 or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But you see, my dad has shown that, like, if you work hard, if you can work hard, show up, work hard. Because, like, for example, the thing that I do at work, I show up 30 minutes early. I learned that from my dad. Get up late. Be the last one in the building. First one in the building, be the last one in the building. I learned most of that from my dad. And when my dad showed that, like, he's orchestrating way to be successful, right? And I feel I feel a sense of gratitude because those values that he has instilled in us based on what he does, because his word does not betrayed his action. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. His word does not betray his action.
Yeah, like living by the word. Like it's like put your money where your mouth is at. Don't just say something and allow it to just pass and you don't actually live up to what you say, but actually live by your word. That is the greatest testimony to allow your life to speak for you. Don't tell people be great.
Yeah.
Live great.
Live great. Yeah.
You know, don't
your life have to be an example of what you are saying.
Yeah. I think there are times, because we are hosting a podcast, do you ever feel convicted or try to be better because you need to maintain a sense of a disciplined life because there are people who are looking up to you?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. And it comes with responsibility, but it's correlate, because I don't want to say something that I can't back it up. So I'm conscious of that, because my thought process is like, if I can say something, then that means I'm doing it. If I cannot say it, that means I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that my word align with my action. And, you know, we're not perfect.
Yeah, we're not perfect. But we should always try to live what we preach, to live by our word, and just maintain integrity. Integrity will protect you. It will protect you when there's harm. And, like, a lot of times we face injustices. But if you know yourself to be true, you know yourself to have integrity, everybody else can lie about you. Everybody else can make smear comments, can smear you. And yet when you have integrity, you will feel protected.
Yeah.
And you will know that, you know what, I'm safe because I know what I'm doing is right. And I know that I have my heart posture is right.
Yeah. And that's that's one of the big thing that was instilled in us,
Yeah.
especially when we coming here to United States and assimilating ourselves to the culture of the United States, and we learned that, hey, you have to work by integrity, right? Because if you don't work by integrity, there's gonna be a part of your life that's gonna catch up to you sooner than you think. So your actions are always in correlation to your ethos, and if what you say is not always aligned with your action, then there's gonna be a disparity, and that disparity is gonna betray your spirits. And that's why most people feel guilt, shame, and and the lack of confidence, right?
Yeah.
Because confidence is built on character. You cannot sustain confidence with a faulty character. If your character is false and you don't have a character that is built on confidence, then you cannot express that confidence. You can never express what you don't have.
What you don't have,
Yeah.
exactly. So you need to be able to back that up.
Yeah.
Like what backs you up whenever you stand at the pulpit and you start preaching?
And you start
You
preaching.
feel condemned because I can look at you and say, well, you're not living by your word. You're telling me you got something else. You're telling me live righteously, but I know your deeds. And it's rather like our fruits, the fruits that we bear, they speak much more than our words. They hold so much weight than our words. And going back to the principles that our parents have taught us, I think the way that our parents taught us was by demonstration.
Yeah.
They would really demonstrate the things that they said. For example, church was a big thing.
Yeah.
It didn't matter whether your mom read their Bible, really read their
You
Bible.
had to go to church.
You had to go to church. It was
If
non-negotiable.
you do not go to church, you do not live in this house.
Yes.
Simple as that.
Non-negotiable.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we need to have non-negotiable values that we just can't compromise regardless of the situations.
Yeah.
Because we go to different environments, we'll always be in different environment. The world is ever changing. You're never going to be the same. You're never going to be in the same environment, but your values have to be the same. Your character has to be constant in a way.
Yeah, no, that's true. Your character have to be constant in a way, because that's the way you portraying yourself to the world. The world is looking at you in a certain way based on your actions.
Yeah.
Not necessarily based on what you think, because what you think, your action is a manifestation of your thoughts,
Of your thoughts.
right? You know, I was thinking this, right? And at the gym, I was like, what you don't know. So I was thinking in this sense, what you don't know is equally dangerous as what you know, but you don't practice it, right?
Yeah.
So whatever you accumulate, when you accumulate knowledge, when you accumulate value from certain practical doctrine that are very important to the growth, right, to your elevation, you have to practice it.
Yeah. That goes back to application.
Yeah.
There is no understanding without application.
Without application,
Wisdom is nothing without application.
Yeah.
We all read the same books, but people who live by it, you see the fruits.
You see the fruit, yeah. And you can't even do an experiment with group A and group B. Let's say group A is reading 1 page a day,
Yeah.
right? And that 1 page, they're reading it and practicing it. And group B is reading the whole book.
The whole Bible.
They're reading, it could be the Bible, it could be a financial thing, but let's say the Bible.
Yeah.
They're reading the Bible, but this group A is reading just one, let's say even a one verse, and practice it. Let's say the verse say, love your neighbor as you love yourself.
Yeah.
And they practice that one verse every day. If you put it in 30-day time span, the one that's going to be more mature and more aligned to the entirety of the Bible will be the one who would read the one verse and practice it, in comparison to the group B who only read the entire book and accumulate knowledge without practicality of it.
Yeah, the difference is the application and writing it on the tablets of your heart.
Yeah.
For you to do that, you can't just read it and let it go, read it and leave, but you have to meditate on it, listen to it, allow yourself to be submerged in it. That's why it's important. Like repetition is also important. And I think when you recite something, it kind of helps you accumulate that knowledge to an extent. And so when you constantly hear something, but I think the disconnect, especially when you going back to African cultures, is what happens after I leave the household.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's the disconnect.
Yeah, I think, like I said, sometimes people feel restricted based on these values because they don't have the understanding. They don't know why is it important for me to be modest.
They don't know why it's important, and because they don't know why it's important, therefore they're willing to test the water. It's like trying to. It's like those kids, this statement about a kid touching the stove.
Yeah.
You tell them don't touch the stove because it's hot, but they touch it to just test if it's hot and get burned.
It's like what Ben did when he tried to light up the house. Let me see if it'll burn.
Ben literally just tried. It's like, let me try the house and see if it's gonna burn, and it immediately burned. But you see in some things, like you said the other day, we were talking, like some things you don't really need. You don't really need to test it out.
You don't
need to test the water.
Some things you just have to accept it as it is.
Yes, it is. And it's like, okay, it's like this, right? For example, you when your parents tell you don't murder someone, I mean, your parents don't tell you that, but society tell you don't murder someone. You're not going to murder someone and test the consequences of it, because there's hierarchy to the consequences. There's level to it. Let's say like something simple in comparison to like stealing food, right?
Yeah.
You can steal food, and the consequence of you stealing food, even though your parents tell you not to steal food, is not incomparable to the consequence of you murdering someone, right? And you see, there's level to it. So it's like, you don't test it out,
Yeah.
And with American culture and African culture, when we come here to the United States, you're like, okay, we are seeing our own culture, so we are living in this house with our own culture. When we go out, how do we assimilate to that culture? How do we assimilate to the American culture?
Well, we take the good of both worlds. And not just that, but like, in order for us to fit in a certain environment, our identity does change. I think our identity is or
doesn't change?
No, I think our identity is dictated by our situation, by our environment. For example, not necessarily your values or those principles that upheld you, but rather your behaviors. That's what I meant by identity. Rather your behaviors and your attitude. Like, let's say the way that I carry myself in school versus how I am at home. There is a level of professionalism that I just don't have whenever I'm at home. And if I were to reverse the roles, then it would be considered inappropriate. And so I think that correlating the values that we accumulate from our households, these values that upheld us, these values that we believe to be good, and also going out into the world that has different values, or at least they're interpreted differently in sort of like
it's like in translation it's interpreted. Like, for example, you said something about respect, right?
Respect, yeah.
So in America, you can't call someone who's same age as your dad, you cannot call him father. But in Africa, you have to call them Papa or Dad Father. Or something, right? And Grandpa, or even someone who's older than me in terms of like age, I have to call them, consider them as brother, sister.
Yes. Remember how we would get so confused whenever our parents would explain to us our ancestries and just our family background.
Oh my gosh.
My mom would say, your auntie's aunt. And I'm like, okay, who's that? And then she would say, well, your uncle's uncle, your grandpa's grandpa. And I'm like, who is that? And then she'll say, well, this one is your grandpa, but they're not your real grandpa, but they're your grandpa from your father's side's grandpa.
You know how many grandpa have we got?
So many.
We have got so many grandpa. One time someone came and it's like, this is your grandpa. And I'm like, no, I know my grandpa is back in Africa, so who is this? He's like, so it's like this. And then they will try to explain it to us.
Yes.
It's like, it's because in their mind, they're thinking about the respect aspect of it.
Exactly.
Right?
Like my dad's uncle is my grandpa.
It's your grandpa. Your dad's uncle is your grandpa. But here you call him, how would you call that?
I don't even know. Like it's
uncle?
not, the relationship is not that close.
Yeah, it's not that close.
Yeah.
So you don't need, I don't know. And also, like, you can't even be friend with an elder person in terms of you calling them friends.
Yeah, and
right?
the transparency, it's just not there.
It's not there. Yeah, it's not there. And then, like, I was have my friend, right? One of my friend, she like her mom was like really close to us when I was in college. She like treated me really well, and I would literally call her mom, like, because she was she was just like my mom. She was kind, and I felt like if I was to call her by her name, which is weird because everybody else was doing that, but I wasn't, and I felt like I would lose that sense of respect, right? And that's the, how you say, the correlation or adapting, or what you say, getting the best of both worlds, is knowing when to do it and when not to do it, right? Because I do have friends who are older than my dad, which is interesting because they consider me as friend. Like you see an older person who you consider them as a father or a mentor, they were like, "Hey friend, how are you doing?" And I'm like, let's go with the friend.
Yes.
There you go.
Or you'll want to address them in a respectable manner, like Mr., Mrs., and they'll say, just call me Tom.
Just call me Tom.
Just call me by my name. It's fine. And you're thinking, well, I just have so much respect for you. It's hard for me to do that. And I think I said the story yesterday of how someone asked me of mom's name.
Yeah.
And I was afraid. I was afraid to answer that question because in my heart, I thought that was wrong to call her name just because of the respect that I had for her. You don't call your mom by their name. Your mom is your mom. They're not your friend. They're not your sister. You just don't do that. And so when they asked me, of course, this person was rooted in American tradition. And so they didn't understand. But for me, I was terrified as a kid. I was really terrified.
Like
I was trying.
It's like, and then you also say this because I feel like we're jumping in this one thing, right? And the extreme of respect is that you can assimilate or connect with those people. That's a thing that I feel we lack here in America, in African culture, is that there's not that connection, the deep connection that you need between a grandparent and the great son, grandchild, right?
Yeah, I think it's important that wisdom transcends to generation after generation. And what we have right now is our parents, they came from Africa. And then we have the next generation that's been raised in America. They have children.
Who have two different
you
type
see
of culture.
the difference, and it's so big because the values are different. And I understand that you can manifest certain things differently, but I think the values should still be the same. But the problem is that wisdom and understanding is not fully transcend.
Would you say the wisdom? Would you say the value deteriorated, or?
I think it's the understanding with the value. When you don't understand something, you tend to leave and rebel. And so when we don't understand, we create our own value systems, or we take on the Western value. And I don't there's certain things that I just don't think, as far as the American values, I just don't think are beneficial for us as Africans to take on. And particularly the notion of modesty. I think it is good. It is beautiful to be modest. For a woman, for a man, modesty begins at heart, but manifesting that physically is just very important as well, because it shows that there's sort of like a superior aim. It's not just about me. Going back to that community oriented, it's not just about me, how I feel, how I want to dress, but it's rather, how do I feed the collective? How do I feed my environment? How do I be fruitful? How do I be like a valuable member to my society? And so you see you see a lot of the younger generation from Africa, they deviate from these values because the wisdom and the understanding of that wisdom has not been transcended. And you see in the Bible with David, he teaches his son, listen to your mother's teachings, listen to your father's teachings. You see the wisdom has been transcendent because you want them to maintain the values that they can teach onto their children and their children's children, because this is what binds us. This is what keeps us. This is what sort of holds that traditional values. And I think with these two perspectives, for example, the conservatives, right? They want to reserve these old traditions, and then it's not that they want everything to be old, do everything the old way, but I think the value should remain the same. If it is a good value, you should keep that good value. Don't run away from that value in the name of progressivism. Sometimes progressivism is not always progress. And so I think that's the big thing with that.
Progress comes when you are stable in your own value, I would say. It's important to stay in that value. So that's where the progress is. So yeah, the values are important, and we are growing, and we are learning, and coming here is always important. And when we come here to the United States, we are learning. We have the best of both worlds, I would say, mainly because we kept what our parents taught us, and at the same time we adapt to the society that we live in today.
Yeah, I think that answered the question of how do we coincide with Western values and African values? How do we combine these together? And adaptability, like you said, as well as staying true to your values, staying true to these things that are good and that are just, and abiding by them, not deviating from them, but also evolving.
Yeah.
That's something that, as Ben was describing how this came to be, began with Ben Pro Records, and Ben Pro Records was not merely like wedding videos, but it was music content. After that, it went to wedding. After that, it evolved, and he still has weddings that he's shooting, and we're doing this podcast. And so evolving is just as important. And so, like, if we can maintain the same value, the same vision, the same principle of elevation, and yet still evolve to adapt to our environment, that is really important. And I think that, like you said, we have the best of both worlds.
Yeah, we do have the best of both worlds. We have the values, which allows us to work hard, which allows us to not forget our roots, which allows us to treat the people the way we want to be treated, and allows us to just become people of integrity. And I'm not saying we're perfect, but we are growing, and that's a sign of progress. That's a sign of elevate. And within that note, I do want to expand the thought of African culture and living in the Western society, because I feel like there's so many of us who are coming from different countries and trying to preserve our own values and culture. And in trying so hard to preserve our own value and culture, we miss the opportunity to adapt to a different culture where we don't necessarily lose our own values, but we adapt and evolve so that we can be able to not only assimilate to this society as well as keeping our own value.
And therefore elevate.
Therefore we elevate.
Yes.
So
you need to dominate your environment. Everywhere you go, there's a sense of like dominion, or you subdue the land.
You conquer the earth.
Yes.
I was talking to someone the other day, and then it's like, when you finished college, right, and you started working, he was like, you every day you'd be like, I'm ready to conquer the earth. I used to say that a lot.
Yeah, but you see the differences. Like, we go to college, we go out into the real world, and they expect us to adapt. They expect us to make the best out of that. But we have to be able to adapt and evolve and grow and use those same skills that they taught us in school and put them to the test and use them to our best advantage.
Guys, I want you to hit the like button, subscribe, share as much as you can, because like I said, we're going to have a lot of things to talk about. Do you have anything to say to them?
No. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Well, thank you, guys. This is the third podcast. Fourth podcast is on the way. We have a lot of things coming up. I'm thinking of bringing some guests here soon. But if you have any topic that you want us to explore, feel free to comment in the section. But peace out. We'll see you guys again.